Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you today on this iron cold gray day, overcast all day long. No boxes, but some interesting sounding stuff, some interesting feeling stuff. Let's see if there's a squealer in the package. Let's see. Let's see what this first one is. I've got Bean on the ready for discarded packages. Yes. She goes over to her little bed. She has a little cat bed that was repurposed as a dog bed. It's on the floor. She likes it quite a bit, so she does everything there. Okay, what is this? This is from the University of Nebraska Press. Always nice to get something from them. This comes out in March as a trade paperback. This is How to Survive Death and Other Inconveniences by Sue Williams Silverman. And let's see, do we have, in these thematically linked pieces, the author explores the fear of death and her desire to survive it through gallows humor, realism, and speculation. Although defeating death is physically impossible, language, commemoration, and metaphor can offer slivers of transcendent immortality. Actually, language will, writing a book will give you the only kind of immortality that humans can have. So get about doing that. Why don't you? You've got a book inside you, at least one. Get about doing that. This is great. All right, so the tagline on the press release is, "Don't want to die? Read this book." Okay, great. So that's well into the new year, so don't really worry about that right away. Let's see what else we have here. Can't help but notice that my surly houseboy got a package today, and he got it. It's from Mile High Comics. I think he used a little money to order a hardcover graphic novel of some kind, and I'm curious to know what it is. But I'm not going to spoil the fun for him. Let's see what this next one is. Okay, this next one's a memoir, another paperback original, looks like. Yeah, this is another paperback original, also from March. This is Francies War by Francie Rebenek Epstein. Another paperback coming out in March. Almost 50 years after it was written, Penguin Books is honored to publish the moving and engrossing Holocaust memoir. In 1942, 22-year-old fashion designer Francie Rebenek was forced on a train destined for a camp concentration in Terezin. Her encampment lasted 3 years, taking her from Prague to Auschwitz to slave labor camps in Hamburg and Bergen-Belsen. And this is her psychologically insightful and stirring memoir. Good Lord. So this came out originally a long time ago. This is published in the spring of 2020 to coincide with the 75th anniversary of the liberation of the camps and Women's History Month. Francies War will also feature rare pre-war photographs from the family's personal collection. Her candid writing, the author's candid writing on female experience during the war may have been a reason that publishers rejected her memoir in 1975. Francie ultimately gave the manuscript to her daughter, who put it in the file cabinet. It remained there until Helen, noting similarities in political movements between the 1930s and the 2010s, reread the memoir and decided it was time for her mother's story to be retold. Well, how fascinating is that? Wow. Okay. All right, great. So what do we have here? Why have I got a Russian novel attached? Oh, okay, it's a whole bunch of background material. We don't need that. We don't need that. If I need that, I will sing out. Okay, so another March paperback. Great. So we're two paperbacks here. Let's move on. Let's try something else. How many packages do we have here anyway? Not that many more. One of them is fairly big. I don't know what that would be. But let's see what this next one is. Okay. This comes out in December, I believe. No, this is late November. We're coming right on top of this. I was wondering if I was going to get a finished copy of this. This is Unbelievers by Alec Ryrie, who did a big book called Protestants that I recommend strongly to all of you. He's a really, really good thinker on religion. And let's see here. Why have... Oh, God. Well, I guess you know the theme of my day. Why have societies that were once overwhelmingly Christian, becomes so secular? We think we know the answer, but in Unbelievers, Alec Ryrie argues that people embraced unbelief much as they have always chosen their worldviews, through their hearts more than their minds. And that he pursues that thread throughout this book, from ancient times to the Shakespearean age to the present. And I have to say, I was disappointed in the book. I really was. It starts... It uses as its exterior mannerism the idea of an impartial, even-handed look at the phenomenon of religious unbelief in history and across history. But the more you read around in it, the more you listen to the silences, the more you realize that the book is written from a presupposition, and a fairly smug one, that unbelief is a kind of mental defect, and that not only is belief the right way to go, but it's belief in this one magic being, this one Christian God. That the book is sort of written, the sort of unspoken counterpoint all throughout the book is, but we know what's really true. We're examining these people, and we're doing it in a fairly humane way, but we know what's really true. And after a while, that started to bug me. Let's see here. Looking back to the crisis of the Reformation and beyond, Unbelievers shows how long before philosophers started to make the case for atheism, powerful cultural currents were challenging traditional faith. These tugged in different ways, not only on celebrated thinkers such as Machiavelli, Montaigne, Hobbes, and Pascal, but on men and women at every level of society, whose voices we hear through their diaries, letters, and court records. Ryrie traces the roots of atheism born of anger, a sentiment familiar to anyone who has ever cursed a corrupt priest, or born of doubt, as Christians discovered their faith was flimsier than they believed. As the Reformation eroded time-honored certainties, Protestant radicals defended their faith by redefining it in terms of ethics. In the process, they set in motion secularizing forces that soon became transformational. And as you can tell, even from that summary, the book drastically underestimates the societal impact of better knowledge. Of better knowledge. The book has a very... despite... the book has a very Protestant assumption that knowledge does not seep, that knowledge does not spread, and that knowledge is therefore dangerous, that it's a contaminant, and we have to think about it that way, instead of that knowledge can change the world. The thing that was happening in the centuries that he's describing, in addition to religion retreating to ethics, is the reason why religion was retreating to ethics, which was that diseases were no longer caused by demons. Mental defects were no longer caused by demons and could be fixed, could be medicated. So that someone who was like the demon-possessed young man in the New Testament who throws himself into fire and into water and who screams, "We are Legion," in the centuries that Ryrie is describing in this book, that young man and all the young men and women like him went from being demon-possessed to having a biological problem that could be solved, that could be fixed, so that you could see that your son or daughter need not be cast into a stone well. They need not be at the mercy of every single charlatan huckster who comes wandering into town saying, "I can dispel demons if you pay my followers." They need not do any of that. It's another thing that happened in these centuries was not just a retreat into ethics. It was that heliocentrism gave way. That all of a sudden we realized, we gradually the knowledge, not the theory or the speculation, but the knowledge seeped into society that the Earth is a planet that goes around the sun, and that therefore the Bible is wrong about that. that people can be infected by invisible pathogens, and that therefore the New Testament is wrong about that. That people who were for millennia considered to be afflicted by demons are actually afflicted by biological imbalances that can be fixed, and therefore the Bible is wrong about that. And also, I might point out, I don't mean to bash on the book. I'm going to write a review of it in which I will give my measured thoughts. But another factor that Ryrie drastically undervalues in terms of a motivation for the changes that he's talking about is America. It's the United States of America, where, at least on paper and in functional reality in the last 150 years, you couldn't have theocratic rule even in small towns. No matter what Inherit the Wind says, it was illegal to do that. Whether people got away with it or not, it wasn't. There is no state church in America. I don't. Anyway, it's a very, very thought-provoking book. I'm hoping that you can tell from this discussion that I actually am urging you to read it. It's just, it disappointed me. I think it doesn't show anything like the breadth of research or understanding that made Protestants so brilliant. This seemed to me to be just one civilized martini away from a protracted sneer. And that would be bad enough. That'd be bad enough. That second cousin to academic condescension, which drives me crazy. That would be bad enough if the people the sneer is directed at weren't right. But in this case, they are right. So anyway, I'm glad to have the finished copy. I will dig right into it. Now I've got a piece of cardboard here, and I've also got the big package. I'm gonna save the big package for last, even though it's not cardboard. So we'll do this one next. What is that, baby bee? You want this? Huh? Hmm? What is that? Can I show you the baby? Oh. Okay, what is this? This is from Penguin Random House. The actual title is Penguin Random House Bantam, and I remember when those were all separate things. This comes out on December 3rd. This is by Christopher Fowler, and it is Bryant and May, The Lonely Hour. This is a Peculiar Crimes Unit mystery. Did we see one of these already? Peculiar Crimes Unit? What a great cover. Look at that. Very wisely, they even put the picture on the spine. That's fantastic. I think I remember seeing one of these before. Let's see here. Maybe it'll jog some memories here. Detectives Arthur Bryant and John May must hunt down a killer who preys on his victims at the same time every night. The lonely hour of 4 a.m. The Peculiar Crimes Unit is called in to investigate when a man is found hanging upside down inside a willow tree on Hampstead Heath, surrounded by a baffling assortment of occult objects. Many questions arise. Was this a botched satanic ritual pulled off by bored teenagers? A gang initiation? Or the work of a mastermind with grander intentions? Bryant and May set off to search for answers and are soon reminded that London is a city steeped in blood and magic. Also dreadful food. When another body is pulled from the river at dawn, it becomes clear that a killer lurks in the night. Do we know exactly where Jason Harrigan was when all of these murders took place? To catch him, the PCU switches to graveyard shifts, but the team still comes up short. As they explore a night city where the normal rules do not apply, they're drawn deeper into a case that involves murder, arson, kidnapping, blackmail, loneliness, and bats. Okay, so do we have maybe a quick synopsis of what this is? I'm not Thomas at SFF 180. I don't remember all these things off the top of my head. What is the central conceit of the series that might help me to remember it? Oh God, there've been 16 Peculiar Crime Unit mysteries. Good Lord. Okay, well, this is an established series that I think I remember seeing one of these on this channel before. This comes out on December 3rd, and it is now mid-November, so I will read this tonight and see if it jogs any memories that way. And now we've got the big package. Let's see what this is. Could be a fat finished copy of something. I think that I'm pretty much done with those, but let us see. Oh, it's a big book of something. Oh, what have we got there, baby? This tripod makes that easy. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, my God. Oh, good Lord. Oh, good Lord. Okay. Do you remember the feeling? This comes out in April, this next book. Do you remember the feeling that we all have when we were intrigued by Ducks Newburyport? And then we got to look at how big it is? Remember that feeling? We were all starting to hear about this book called Ducks Newburyport, and we were thinking, oh, that sounds interesting. What? It's 1,200 pages long? What? Well, prepare for that feeling again. This comes out in April. This is by Nino Harashvili. Nino Harashvili. And it is The Eighth Life. What? God help us. The Eighth Life by NaNoWriMo, translated by Charlotte Collins and Ruth Martin. I can only imagine that it took two people. Probably the first of them died halfway through. Okay, well, let's see what we have here. At the start of the 20th century, on the edge of the Russian Empire, a family prospers. It owes its success to a delicious chocolate recipe passed down with generations of great solemnity and caution. A caution which is justified. This is a recipe for ecstasy that carries a very bitter aftertaste. Stasia learns it from her Georgian father and takes it north, following her new husband Simon to his posting at the center of the Russian Revolution in St. Petersburg. But Stasia will be but the first of a symphony of grand but all too often doomed romances that swirl from sweet to sour in this epic tale of the Red Century. That's the term in the sheet here. Tumbling down the years across vast expanses of longing and loss, generation after generation of this compelling family hears echoes and sees reflections. Great characters and greater relationships come and go and come again. The world shakes and the shakes some more, and the readers rejoice to have found at last one of those glorious old books in which you can live and learn, be lost and found, and make new indelible friends. You're going to want to know who the author is. NaNoWriMo was born in Georgia in 1983 and is an award-winning novelist, playwright, and theater director. She has been writing in both German and Georgian, so the Georgia there is not it's not the gorgeous and very temperate state here in the United States. It's the real Georgia. She has been writing in both German and Georgian since the age of 12. In its German edition, The Eighth Life was a bestseller and won the Anna Sagers Prize, the Lessing Prize stipend, and the Bertolt Brecht Prize in 2018. It has also been a major bestseller on publication in Holland, Poland, and Georgia. Oh, it can't be a major bestseller in Georgia. I don't know what it's worth, but I would expect that. But now I want to hear from Britta Bowler. This was a bestseller in Germany? Now I want to hear all about it. She's been holding out on me. She's been holding out a 1,000-page book on me. Or actually, let's actually check just to make sure that we know this is coming, because everybody's going to talk about this. I'm sure everybody is. 934 is the count on this edition. That's close enough to 1,000. Wow. Okay. Well, The Eighth Life. This is our author. That is, I'm sure I'm probably massacring her name. That is NaNoWriMo. And this is The Eighth Life. Surely the biggest novel that will come out in 2020. We'll see. But surely either this or the new Larry Kramer will be the biggest novel to come out in 2020. Okay. All right. Well, that's an April book, so I have it now. I don't have to think about it. So there you go. That is our mail for today. So we have this thing, The Eighth Life. Look at the size of that thing. Then we have The Lonely Hour, a Bryant and May mystery. I'm going to have to look into these and see what the story is. We have Unbelievers by Alec Ryrie, a history of religious unbelief. Really, it's a history of not believing in the Christian God. We have Francies War, a Holocaust memoir that was rejected at first and is now being reprinted for the world by Penguin. God bless them. And finally, Death and Other Inconveniences. How to Survive, Death and Other Inconveniences. A book, I imagine, about drugs and life extension and cell regeneration and maybe even cryonics and all that sort of stuff that humans use to cheat the Grim Reaper. When the way to do it is to set down your words and put them out into the world. And don't, obviously, since the goal here is immortality, that is a primary goad to make sure those words are you. Don't go chasing after what you think is the hot item. Don't write a vampire romance or anything like that. Write your book. Write you into a book. And then put it out into the world somehow. That way, you have as good a chance as anybody ever has at being immortal. So there you go. I mean, this is a perfect example. Francie's long gone. She has a book now. She'll live in libraries and in people's hearts for a long time because of this. I don't mean to lecture. This isn't a NaNoWriMo video. This is a mail video, and it was a fairly good one. Most of these are, we've got, 3 that I can't deal with? 1 that I've already read, and then The Lonely Hour, which I will read tonight. Sounds intriguing on its own, even if I don't quite remember right now off the top of my head the other books in the series. But maybe they'll come back to me. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, Book 2.